11,000 people in a single week arrive in Lampedusa, an island with just 6,000 residents. Do the math. September 2023. Reception centers collapse, streets overflow. Cameras from around the world capture the chaos. A newly elected prime minister makes a promise that sounds impossible. Never again will Italy be Europe's refugee camp. 1 year later, arrivals drop by nearly 60%. Brussels calls it a success. The press talks about the Italian model, but almost no one asks how. And even fewer ask, at what cost? Because when a problem disappears that fast, it doesn't usually disappear. It just moves. Today we're analyzing what Italy did, why it worked, and what happened to the people who stopped arriving again. Redistribution, funds, solidarity. But the answer was the same as always. Malta closed its ports. Greece reinforced patrols. France tightened controls in the Alps. Spain focused on Gibraltar. For Brussels, the problem remained Italian. That political isolation was key. Italy understood that no one was coming to rescue it, and it stopped asking for permission. October 2022. Giorgia Meloni comes to power as Italy's first female prime minister, and her promise connects with an exhausted society. This ends now. No more uncontrolled arrivals. No more Italy as Europe's refugee camp. No more Lampedusa as the symbol of continental failure. The question wasn't what she wanted to do. The question was how to do it. Because you can't build a wall in the sea. But Meloni understood something fundamental. She didn't need to close the Mediterranean. She just needed to prevent migrants from reaching Italian territory. And for that, she designed a three-layered strategy that reinforces itself. Externalize migration control. Criminalize rescues indirectly. Legalize the entire system to make it compatible with European law. It's not a physical wall. It's a bureaucratic, financial, and legal wall that starts in the Sahara Desert and ends in European courts. And it worked. 2024, 64,000 arrivals, a 60% drop. Lampedusa no longer collapses every month. Reception centers return to manageable levels. Headlines disappear. Meloni declares victory. Europe takes note. But here's what no one says out loud. Those 90,000 migrants who didn't arrive in Italy in 2024 didn't decide to stay home. They're somewhere else. And that place is much worse than Lampedusa. First pillar of the system. Externalize. And it starts 1,000 kilometers before anyone touches the water. Italy didn't invent this model. Europe has been applying it for decades. Turkey receives 6 billion euros since 2016 to hold nearly 4 million Syrian refugees. Morocco patrols the Strait of Gibraltar with European funds. Mauritania receives millions to control Saharan routes. Meloni just perfected it. Tunisia, the plug. July 2023, Meloni travels to Tunisia. With her, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. They sign an agreement, 105 million euros. The official document talks about economic development, democratic stability, and migration management. The reality is simpler. Tunisia stops migrants before the boats touch the water. President Kais Saied needs money. His economy is in crisis. The IMF demands reforms he doesn't want to make. Europe offers him an alternative. 105 million. No macroeconomic conditions. Just one migration condition. No one leaves. Results are immediate. August 2023. 3,000 people depart from Tunisian coasts. August 2024. Less than 1,000. But there's a detail Europe prefers to ignore. February 2024. Human Rights Watch publishes a devastating report. Tunisia is deporting sub-Saharan migrants to the Sahara Desert, abandoning them at the border with Libya. No water, no food, no communication. The NGO Alarm Phone documents one operation. 250 people abandoned. Some die of dehydration. Others are captured by traffickers. Those who survive walk 150 kilometers back. Italy transfers the promised money. Libya, the Mediterranean prison. This is the most brutal. Since 2017, Italy has financed and trained the Libyan Coast Guard. 120 million euros between 2017 and 2024. 4 new patrol boats delivered in 2024. A rescue coordination center in Tripoli, operated with Italian funds. Libya's job: intercept boats in the Mediterranean, return people to Libyan detention centers. 2024, 17,400 people intercepted. The problem: those detention centers are torture camps. The United Nations support mission in Libya has documented it repeatedly. Executions, systematic rape, forced labor, selling people as slaves. This isn't figurative language, it's literal. Traffickers control the centers. They extort families for ransoms, sell migrants to forced labor networks, torture to extract information about contacts with money. Doctors Without Borders, January 2025. Men with whip marks on their backs. Women pregnant after rapes. Children with severe malnutrition. Italy knows this, funds it anyway. Why? Because technically, Italy isn't violating any law. Libya intercepts in its own waters. Libya detains in its own territory. Italy just cooperates. Perfect externalization. The result without legal responsibility. Albania, offshore processing. November 6, 2023. Italy signs an agreement with Albania. 670 million euros to build 2 asylum processing centers on Albanian soil. The concept: intercept migrants in the Mediterranean. Take them directly to Albania. Process asylum requests under Italian jurisdiction, but outside the European Union. Approved, they can enter Italy. Rejected, immediate deportation. Capacity: 3,000 people simultaneously. The first group arrives October 16, 2024. 16 men, Bangladesh and Egypt. 48 hours later, an Italian court orders their release. Reason: you can't deport to countries classified as unsafe. Meloni approves a decree, reclassifies 19 countries as safe. Judges block it again. As of March 2025, less than 100 people processed permanently. 670 million spent. Infrastructure built. Operability almost zero. But Albania isn't just a processing center. It's a political declaration. Europe can process asylum outside Europe. And that idea is changing everything. The second pillar of the Italian model was more subtle and, for that very reason, more effective. Criminalizing rescues without formally banning them. Italy did not close the Mediterranean to NGOs. It made operating there almost impossible. With the Piantadosi decree, each rescue forces ships to return immediately to a port assigned by the Italian authorities, often hundreds or even thousands of kilometers from the rescue point. Before, a single ship could rescue several boats in one mission. Now, one rescue means returning to port and being taken out of operation for days. High fines and the administrative detention of vessels were added to this. The result was immediate. Fewer ships, fewer rescues, and fewer arrivals in Italy. But also more deaths. In 2024, more than 2,200 people died in the central Mediterranean, a higher figure than in years with more arrivals. The uncomfortable question arises on its own. Is it a success to reduce arrivals if the cost is multiplying suffering far from the cameras? For the Italian government, the implicit answer was yes, because the goal was never to solve migration. It was to solve an internal political crisis, and in that sense, the strategy worked. The real masterstroke came with the third pillar: legalizing the system. Meloni did not break European rules. She rewrote them. In 2024, the European Union approved the new Migration and Asylum Pact, the most far-reaching change in decades. Border procedures, safe third countries, processing outside European territory. Everything Italy had been doing de facto became continental policy. Italy stopped being the uncomfortable exception and became the model. Germany, France, the Netherlands, and other countries moved in the same direction. The message was clear. The right to asylum still exists on paper, but its exercise is being pushed farther and farther away from Europe. What was once considered extremist is now political consensus. The agreement with Albania marked a before and after politically. Europe understood that it could externalize even the final link in the system. The numbers say that Italy solved its migration crisis. 60% fewer arrivals. Lampedusa no longer collapses. Reception centers are under control. Voters are calm. Brussels talks about success. But the reality is more uncomfortable. Italy did not solve migration. It displaced it. From Lampedusa to Tunisia, from Italian coasts to Libyan prisons. The people who didn't arrive in Italy in 2024 didn't disappear. They are trapped in detention centers, abandoned in the desert, or dead on more dangerous routes. The problem wasn't solved. It became invisible. And in politics, what is invisible ceases to exist. Italy can claim it solved its crisis, and from an internal perspective that is true. But what it really did was show that a country can reduce the political impact of migration without addressing any of its structural causes. Europe took note, and the model is expanding. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And we've heard this rhyme before. The question is not whether this model works. The question is how long it can be sustained before the human cost catches up. Because displacing the problem is not the same as solving it. Sooner or later, what is pushed out of sight comes back into view. The first result of this model doesn't appear in press conferences or official charts. It appears in the sea. 2,260 people died in the central Mediterranean in a single year. It's the highest number in the last 3 years. But unlike in 2015, when every shipwreck made world headlines, today these deaths go almost unnoticed. Why? Because they happen farther away, in Libyan waters, on longer and more dangerous routes, with no NGO boats nearby to document them. The Mediterranean remains a grave, only now it's an invisible grave. The second consequence is even more serious, though less talked about. Today, at this very moment, around 30,000 people are detained in Libyan centers, not for committing crimes, not for posing a threat, only for trying to cross the sea, and Europe funds it. Testimonies are consistent again and again. Torture to extort money from families, forced labor, systematic sexual violence. The United Nations does not mince words. It calls it crimes against humanity. Italy knows about these reports, and yet it transfers funds every quarter. The third consequence affects the very heart of the international system. The 1951 Geneva Convention establishes that every person has the right to seek asylum in the territory where they are. This principle, born after World War II, when millions of Europeans were refugees, is dying. If a person is intercepted at sea and returned to Libya before reaching European soil, they never exercise their right to asylum. If their application is processed in Albania and denied, they never step foot on European Union territory. The right still exists in treaties. In practice, it's being dismantled. The fourth consequence is political, and it's contagious. Other European governments are already copying the model. Germany tightens border controls. France increases deportations by more than 50%. The Netherlands elects a far-right government with zero immigration promises. What was considered extremism just 5 years ago is now presented as common sense. The Overton window is shifting, and what seemed unthinkable yesterday will become official policy tomorrow. The fifth consequence is geopolitical. Europe presents itself as a global defender of human rights, but it funds torture in Libya. It talks about the rule of law while paying authoritarian regimes to violate international treaties. It proclaims itself a moral beacon and, at the same time, abandons people in the desert. The rest of the world sees this and takes note. When Europe criticizes human rights violations in China, Russia, or anywhere else, the response will be simple and devastating. Like in Libya? Hypocrisy has a geopolitical cost, and Europe will pay it. Italy says it solved its migration crisis. That's the official narrative. The numbers seem to confirm it. 60% fewer arrivals. Lampedusa no longer collapses. Centers are under control. Meloni declared victory. Europe copied the model. Voters are satisfied. But here's the truth that doesn't make headlines. Italy didn't solve the problem. It displaced it. From Lampedusa to Tunisia. From the Italian coasts to Libyan prisons. From European territory to centers in Albania that barely function. From newspaper covers to invisible graves in the Mediterranean. The 90,000 people who didn't reach Italy in 2024 didn't decide to stay home. They are trapped in Libya, tortured to extract information or money. They are abandoned in the Tunisian desert, dying of thirst. They are drowned on more dangerous routes, with no boats nearby to rescue them. Europe responds that it's not its jurisdiction. Technically, that's correct. Morally, it's devastating. And legally, it will soon become the standard. Because this is no longer just the Italian model. It's the future of European migration policy. Australia did it first. Italy perfected it. Europe is adopting it. And the rest of the world will copy it. The right to asylum is not being abolished outright. It's being hollowed out from the outside. Not with speeches, with creative externalization. Italy solved its migration problem. It didn't reduce migration. It didn't save lives. It didn't address any structural causes. It only ensured that the problem happens where cameras don't record. And as long as the numbers keep dropping, no one will ask what happened to those people. Because in politics, what is unseen doesn't exist. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. Now tell me in the comments, are you in favor of how Italy solved immigration? Believe me, your opinion matters to me. I'm very curious and I love reading the comments. Subscribe to keep watching our videos and see you in the next one. Have a great day.